Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks everyone for joining today's webinar covering how to manage data protection of SaaS workloads efficiently. So today we'll cover the following topics: an introduction to Metallic, a close partnership between Commvault and DMP, a demo of simplified data protection of Office 365, Dynamics 365, Azure VMs, and object storage. And we'll end with a live questions and answers session. But most importantly, we will draw a ticket for the qualifying Formula One round on Saturday, September 3rd. And with me today is Ruben Randers from Commvault Team Metallic. Ruben is an experienced expert on the Metallic platform, bringing over 8 years of experience with the Commvault technology. Welcome, Ruben.
Hey, Bjorn. First of all, thank you for the introduction. It's amazing to be here, and thanks again for the invite. I also would like to take the opportunity to give you an introduction. So today I'm here with my co-presenter of DMP, Bjorn Boot. Bjorn is responsible for the cloud and DMAS solutions and owns the Metallic platform at DMP. So before we start with the technical section, I think it will be useful to briefly talk about our mutual history. So first of all, Commvault is an expert in the data management industry and data protection industry for over 25 years. We have been recognized as a leader in the Gartner quadrant for the 11th consecutive time this year, something that we're really proud of. Our cloud journey started in 2010 when we announced the first data protection and data recovery capabilities for cloud workloads with our Commvault software. In 2019, we announced Metallic, our software as a service platform, or SaaS platform. Last year, we opened it up for MSPs to even consume the Metallic services even more. Today, we have a portfolio that helps you with addressing any data challenge that you have, independently of where the data resides. Are you looking for protecting data on-premise or in the cloud? You can rest assured we have a solution for it. That's what we call the power of and. Metallic is considered our innovation engine. Everything we do needs to make sense for us, but as well for our customers and for our partners. Our goal is to radically simplify data protection because SaaS is meant to be easy. As we move forward, you will notice that our partnership with DMP is covering multiple years already. Maybe, Bjorn, do you want to provide some details on it?
As you can see, Commvault has had quite a journey over the past 25 years, evolving her technology. And DMP, founded back in 2007, has been part of this journey, with both organizations working together closely, developing features and implementing Commvault solutions for our joint customers. As of today, DMP has 30 highly skilled engineers with Commvault in their DNA, serving more than 500 customers and helping multi-global organizations get control over more than 40,000 VMs in backup and over 400,000 Office 365 users in backup. In total, managing 70 petabytes of backend storage.
So that's already a very nice accomplishment. And when we look at what we have been doing with Metallic over the last 2 to 3 years is we've been extending our portfolio tremendously. This includes the coverage of multiple SaaS workloads. We established recently a partnership with Oracle to protect workloads in OCI or Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. We extended our Metallic Recovery Reserve to OCI. Metallic Recovery Reserves are virtual air-gapped storage, but we will give a bit more detail on this in a later phase. We also introduced Hyperscale X for protecting data at the edge. And also here, DMP introduced the DMP Backup Appliance. Bjorn, do you want to give some details on that, please?
Yes, thanks, Ruben. So DMP's Backup Appliance really adds value. It's a fully DMP managed and monitored backup target in customer's data center, especially where fast RTO is required, or when data can't be stored in public clouds due to compliance reasons. DMP's Backup Appliance can be easily integrated with DMAS Cloud Drive for secondary copies. This is DMP's cloud storage in our own private data centers across the world.
Well, that's actually a good explanation, and thank you for that. Just to move forward, Metallic is now active in more than 30 countries around the globe. We achieved the FedRAMP High Ready status. This is certification for US governments institutions in the US. It does not really apply to organizations in Europe, but it's a very nice showcase. So to show on what we do to make sure our platform and your data within is managed and retained securely. We recently acquired a company called Trapex. Trapex specializes in cyber deception. This will enable you even more to be more proactive during a cyber incident. And in all fairness, the future is looking bright. There is even more to come. As highlighted on previous slide, this slide depicts the countries where Metallic is active today. To deliver our Metallic services as close as possible to the customer location, we make use of Microsoft Azure. Besides the geographical availability, Azure also allows us to efficiently scale our platform according to the customer needs. This flexibility allows us to deliver our Metallic services in the most optimized and performance way.
And where public cloud storage cannot be used due to security or compliance reasons, or due to very high egress costs in public clouds, then DMP's DMaaS Cloud storage can be used. Data is compressed, deduplicated, and encrypted in flight and at rest in any of the listed locations. Currently, multiple customers are using DMP's cloud as their secondary or primary data center. We help them manage 70 petabytes of production data, from which around 30 petabytes of backup data is stored on DMP's cloud platform.
So when we look at it, the power of Metallic is really the breadth of coverage. We support SaaS workloads, workloads running in cloud, on-prem workloads, and data at edge. These include workloads, SaaS workloads like Microsoft 365, Dynamics, and Salesforce. Workloads part of our hybrid cloud portfolio, including, for example, on-prem VMware, Hyper-V, Azure Virtual Machines, Amazon EC2, or maybe some databases like SQL Server or Amazon RDS. Our platform also supports data protection of endpoint devices. These devices can be running on top of Windows, Macintosh, or even Linux. We have built-in solutions for ransomware detection and recently introduced ThreatWise into our portfolio. And last but not least, we also support content indexing or compliant search for endpoint devices and Microsoft 365. But Bjorn, I noticed that we have highlighted a few items in DMP Orange, so I'm quite sure you have done it with a reason.
Yeah, we'll have short 2-minute demos ready at the end of this presentation, and we'll demonstrate how easy and how fast it is to have your data protected in Metallic.
Oh, that would be actually very cool, and it will allow us to show our audience what we're doing with Metallic.
Yeah, Metallic is built as a cloud-native SaaS solution with ease in mind, so customers log in and manage their data protection environments using a single and HTML-only management dashboard, the Metallic Hub. And what's in it for you with DMP? As a DMP customer, you have access to DMP support with over 15 years of experience in Commvault technology, and DMP support is provided in Dutch, German, and English language.
So we talked about the way that Metallic stores your data in a secure way. Let us have another talk about it. So on the left side, we added a few workloads that you might be looking at protecting with Metallic. For example, on-premise virtualization or maybe some cloud workloads. On the right, we added the Metallic platform. The first thing to call out is that the data stored in Metallic Recovery Reserve or virtual air-gapped storage is residing in a different security domain. The only way you can access the data is by hopping over the Metallic platform. Within the Metallic platform, we have appropriate security controls in place. We support multi-factor authentication and SAML, for example, with Azure Active Directory. We have a security IQ dashboard and so on. All communication between Metallic and the protected workloads occur in a secure way. All data is encrypted with an industry standard cipher. The encryption is performed both in flight as at rest. In the lower part, we highlighted the certificates that we have obtained with Metallic so far, and we also took the opportunity to list the certificates that DMP holds as well. But hey, Bjorn, can you tell us something more about the Security IQ dashboards?
For sure, and this is actually one of my favorite features, and it has two components. So first is the security posture, and it gives insight in which security controls have been enabled or could be enabled. And these are features like multi-factor authentication and authorization workflows. For example, restore authorization, but there's more. And the second is the anomaly detection. So Metallic protects your data daily or even multiple times per day, right? And based on machine learning, it understands your system's normal behavior. As soon as anomalies occur, like many encrypted files, it will give an overview of the detected anomalies. And really useful, it gives you the ability to view and recover all changed files prior to the detected anomaly date. And this restore can be an in-place restore, but also out of place in an isolated environment for further investigation. But hey, Ruben, why do you need to protect SaaS workloads? Isn't the cloud vendor taking care of this?
Well, that's one of the things that we hear quite frequently. And why do you need to protect data residing in a SaaS application? But did you even know that Microsoft is recommending to protect the Microsoft Office 365 data? And only 13% of the organizations are effectively doing it. Now, if you want to get some more info on what we're doing with Metallic for Microsoft 365, just check boost.microsoft.com. If you want more details on the shared responsibility model, check the shared responsibility model of Microsoft. If you want more details on the Metallic shared responsibility model, get in touch with DMP and they will be able to give you an answer. But Bjorn, maybe you can already give some high-level details.
Yeah, thanks, Ruben. So, for example, Microsoft only protects for accidental deletion for a short time, like 30 days, depending on the data type, and it does not give any point-in-time recovery options. Ruben will talk more about the reasons why additional protection is needed on the next slide. There are some nasty 0 days already, but there's more that comes into play here. So what do you need as a customer is not just the ability to recover data. You need one point of contact who can help out for all of your data protection recovery questions, a partner that has the experience. And with DMP's plus 15 years of experience, we can help and guide you how to recover your data correctly, and the ability to have your backup environment fully managed, if you like. That's the added value of DMP on top of the already excellent capabilities of Metallic.
So when we look at the reasons for data loss in a little bit more detail, so did you actually know that 20% of the data loss is caused by accidental deletion or administrative error? So remember an example of an organization losing the Microsoft Teams data of more than 140,000 employees simply due to a misconfiguration. That happened about 1 or 2 years ago. The need for data protection really exists. Moreover, cyber criminals are getting more and more intelligent. The first examples on how you can encrypt data in Microsoft SharePoint and OneDrive have already been documented. Do you want to know some more? Just do a quick Google search, and I'm quite sure you will find the required details. Or if needed, just reach out to DMP and they will share the link. I also read an article earlier today that the cost of cyber insurance is set to double over the next 12 to 18 months. Having a data protection solution that protects all of your data, independently of where it resides, that will be required by insurance companies. So, almost every SaaS application has a native protection methodology. But the question to ask is it really sufficient? Just think about the articles that we shared earlier before. Metallic stores your data in an isolated location away from the source data. The platform allows you to set your own retention times, and the user interface is developed to allow simplified, flexible, and rapid data recovery operations.
Power of Metallic, is the broad support of backup workloads, which allows data protection independently of the location, whether it is in cloud or in your own data center. Simply said, Metallic is not a point solution. It's software as a service, easy to deploy and easy to manage, and of course, on top, excellent DMP support. What do you want to say here, Ruben?
Well, I would like to call out the last 3 points. So first of all, our layered security approach, which has been approved by many organizations around the globe. Secondly, the ease of use to deliver flexible recovery options. And last but not least, the list of certifications already obtained by Metallic, but That actually concludes the introduction section. So let us start with the fun stuff now.
So as soon as you've signed up for Metallic via DMP, your Metallic journey starts with a welcome to the Metallic family email. And here you can set up your password first and log in to the Metallic Hub. To increase security, Metallic supports external SAML identity providers such as Azure AD and Okta. So before you continue adding workloads right away, we strongly recommend completing this step first. There's a step-by-step guidance available on docs.metallic.io. So while logging in, the Hub really is your entry point into the Metallic SaaS solution. The Hub is always your first landing zone, and here you can deploy workloads easily, all wizard driven, or check up on your SLA for already deployed workloads. More detailed reporting is available in Advanced View, which is also where you can perform your day-to-day tasks such as restores, check up on backup jobs, or set up alerting. So Metallic supports many SaaS workloads, such as Office 365, Dynamics 365, but also Azure VM, Azure SQL, AWS, and more. And there's no need for you to deploy any infrastructure on-premise to protect these datasets. On-premise workloads like VMware, Hyper-V, or file servers and databases, you can protect data directly to Metallic Recovery Reserve or deploy DMP's backup appliance and keep a backup copy in your own data center or directly to the DMP cloud using DMA's Cloud Drive. This is also very useful if you can't have a copy in the public cloud. Now let's start with configuring the first workload, Office 365, and we'll be covering Dynamics 365, Object Storage, and Azure VM later.
So what we're doing in the background is basically we are preparing the environment for the Office 365 onboarding. What happens is in backend we are defining the retention plans, we're putting the storage accounts in place and that kind of stuff. Once that is done, it will give us a very easy wizard by using the express configuration to allow us to onboard. If we hit OK here, once this preparation phase is done. So the next step is, do you want to enable the region-based storage? The customer that we're onboarding is specifically only available in Germany. So in this case, I will say no. So for every Office 365 workload, you can define where it has to go to. So for example, Netherlands and Germany. Once that is done, we click on New Configuration. Let's say that we start with Exchange first. And what you will notice here is that we have two different ways to onboard the Office 365 workloads. On one side, we have the Express configuration. That is the one that we recommend people to use because it's very easy to set up. We are using a global administrator only for the initial setup. Once the setup has been done, everything will happen or occur through Azure applications, so Azure AD applications. Nice to know with we don't really require service accounts. Service accounts are not being used. Everything uses the modern authentication methodology. What it will do is it will give you a pop-up telling, hey, can you please authenticate against Microsoft Azure itself, and then from there we have to approve the Azure application with the predefined permissions. So in this case we have John Doe. So what we will be doing now is we have some enterprise applications that are owned and managed by Metallic. And part of the process here is that you are allowing that enterprise application to access the Office 365 environment in this organization.
Okay.
Once that is done, just hit close.
Right.
Maybe it's also worth mentioning there is a custom configuration. Custom configuration allows to define your own Azure AD application, but in all fairness, it's not something that we see that often. People really like the simple way forward with the express configuration. Once that is done, just hit create. And yeah, actually, that was the onboarding of Exchange Online. So there are two ways to define content. So option one is you will select individual mailboxes. This can be done from the mailboxes tab by going to the option that you just highlighted called add mailbox. Now, this is not something that is very scalable because that will also mean that for every new user that joins the organization, that somebody manually needs to define the mailbox in Metallic. So as an alternative and better approach, we have the content tab. And in the content tab, you also have an add drop-down list. In this add drop-down list, first of all, you have an all mailboxes option. And the all mailboxes option, what it does is it will, on a regular basis, scan the Office 365 environment for new mailboxes and automatically add those mailboxes in the backup operation. So I will say, like, take this one, and we can define it maybe with a 7-year retention plan, for example. And we hit save. Now let's say that there is a specific need to give certain users or a certain group of users, let's say the legal departments with a different retention time. Note that there is under the add mailboxes in the content tab. So add, yeah. There's also the ability to define an Active Directory group. So in this Active Directory group, you can consolidate all of the members of the legal team. Then you can select the AD group and you can associate the AD group with, for example, an infinite retention time. So let's say implementation team or something like that. And then on the top, you have the Office 365 plan. And from there, you can say infinite retention. So what happens now is on a regular basis, we scan the environment, we find 10 users. 2 out of these users are also membered in the implementation team group or the legal team group. And that will be automatically associated with an infinite retention. All of the other users will have a 5-year retention time assigned. And the one that has the membership in the AD group, that will take precedence. So infinite retention will be applied above the 7-year retention. And then what is also useful to know is, let's say that you have a specific group for interns. You do not want to protect the data of your interns because, let's be honest, they're only there for 30 days maybe. You see that there's an actions column in the section. If you hit those 3 dots in the actions column, and then you go to manage, you will notice that you have the ability to also exclude users from the backup. So that will mean that I protect all of the mailboxes except the mailboxes of people, of persons membered in the AD group here. Exclusion takes precedence on inclusion. So if I have 2 users, one in AD group, another AD group that is disabled or excluded, the exclusion will take precedence. Normally, I will believe that the first backup job must have kicked off already, and it's effectively the case. So as you can see, we did the onboarding, and then during the onboarding, less than, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes afterwards, your first backup job is already running for the Office 365 Exchange Online estate.
So basically in like less than 5 minutes, we have our first Exchange Online backup running.
Yeah, that's it.
Really cool.
Now, what you will see or notice is for the other workloads, like OneDrive or Teams and SharePoint, it's a similar process. It provides the same rapid deployment, the same agility, also in terms of functionality, adding groups, adding sites for SharePoint Online or Teams, has pretty much the same same layout and same functionality. So in this case, let's say we start with OneDrive. Again, express configuration, custom configuration. Again, we log on with the global administrator. What is also a good thing to know is as we are doing an interactive login here, there is no need to disable the multi-factor authentication on the global administrator. So even though in our test environments here, we don't have the multi-factor authentication enabled. So that basically means that you just provide username and password, you hit save, and that's it. Let's say that the multi-factor authentication is enabled, username, password, you get a pop-up on your cell phone, you approve it, you do the configuration. So as you can see, same principle, you have the ability to specify individual users and users tab. Again, not the most agile and flexible approach. Or you go into the content tab where Bjorn already selected all users. Also under the add drop-down list, we have different options, including the AD group. So protect all of the users with 5-year retention time, for example, except for the executive leadership. Their data we want to retain for infinite retention time, for example. If you go back to users, maybe one last thing. Let's say that we added all of the users, either through all users or to a specific AD group. You still have an actions column here. So in the actions column, you can say, change the plan, because max, even though it's members of all users or a specific user group, I want it to be retained with infinite retention time. So you can overrule or modify the retention plan here. Alternatively, you also have the ability here to say this particular mailbox, I want to be, or OneDrive, better said, I want to exclude it in the back. That's also there in the actions column. Now you will notice that our dashboard is slightly getting populated. What is good to know here is that the figures of the dashboard is based on a 3-day SLA. So the 3-day SLA is being used to determine what is the backup coverage of all of the data. There are some additional backup health reports that we can show the audience in a later phase that gives a little bit of a more fine-grained control to show what is effectively going on. Now, Teams, we can start with Teams as well. See, again, very similar process. You have to define a name, you log in with the global administrator, you approve the enterprise application, you hit create, and then we go into the similar process as before. Good thing to know is for Teams, all of the data protection is done by using, again, Azure AD applications and modern authentication. We do support the recovery of granular data for Microsoft Teams. And the restore of granular data, what it does is it will temporarily create a service account in the Azure AD associated to the Teams site. And we will use that user service account to effectively restore the data back into Microsoft Teams. And once the restore has been completed successfully, guess what? We will be decommissioning that service account again. So that's our way to push granular data back into Microsoft Teams. So basically, the service account exists only for a few minutes or tens of minutes, depending on the size of the environment. Then we have SharePoint Online. SharePoint Online requires one additional step, but we'll come to that in a few minutes. So again, modern authentication, Azure AD application, global administrator, we approve. We say accept. Then just bear in mind that we still need to define a name for the client here. Takes a few minutes. Okay, then we say fine, close, a name. And then what you will notice is that you need to provide additional permissions for the Azure AD application. So click here. Again, very easy depicted on how we have to do it. Everything is just copy paste. We log in into the SharePoint Online. Get this one. You go to the first one, the app ID. We paste the app ID in the app ID and title. We hit lookup. Once that is done, you see that you have the tenant ID, which is your app domain. Copy paste, save, and then we go back, and then we have that XML value, and that needs to go into the permission request XML, and we hit create. Once that is done, we have access on the SharePoint Online environment. We just say trusted here. Give it a few seconds. Now if we go back to Office 365, the other tile, I confirm. We hit close, and then we hit create. And that was the onboarding of SharePoint Online. So as you can see, I think we spent maybe slightly around 10 minutes, and we onboarded the 4 Office 365 workloads in Metallic. Again, everything that we do here is making use of the shared data plane component. So you don't need to deploy any footprint. You just consume the platform that we make available. And the only thing we need is access on the environment. And from there, the jobs can be executed. Everything here has a similar format. As you can see, overview, sites, content for mailboxes, tools, mailboxes, content, configuration, monitoring, and reports. If you go into the reports section, we already give a little bit of an overview in terms of the backup history, the backup growth, audit trail, and so on. Fortunately, we don't have any jobs that completed yet, so therefore it's these things are still empty. We already discovered 21 SharePoint sites in our test environments, apparently. Then you see that the first one is already completed, OneDrive completed successfully in the meantime, and the other 3 ones are running. If you go to Protect for a minute again, and Office 365, I know it completed successfully because it already filled in the SLA percentage. So you see 100% SLA percentage. We discovered 7 users and approximately 651 megabytes of data and 666 files. Now, while we leave these jobs running, maybe it could be useful to start doing the next onboarding. Let's start with Dynamics, and then afterwards you can revisit this section and see how the jobs have completed in the meantime. Okay, so Dynamics comes with storage included. Same story as with Office 365. We discover based on a per user model. Good thing to know, Office 365, 4 workloads, OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange, Teams. If a single user is consuming multiple services, it will be counted as one. Dynamics 365, we support the CRM applications, including sales. Again, we provision the storage in Germany, but if the customer is associated with a different geographical location or country, we will be using a different part of our platform. In Dynamics 365, as you can see, similar approach, express configuration, hit sign in with Microsoft. We again use a global administrator for the initial setup. Afterwards, everything is done through the Azure AD application. Hit close, and then we hit create. Once that is done, go over here, and then we can say Dynamics, let's say 7 years retention time. just hit add. And that's it. So what happens now, every new environment that is being provisioned on Dynamics will be automatically discovered and associated with a 7-year retention time. It already found out of the different tables that are underneath the specific environment. So I will say, Bjorn, let's kick off a backup job so that also that one can process in the backend. And then I think either we start with the object storage account in the backend while we leave this ones running, or we can go to the Azure VM. It's up to you to choose. Okay. So for the object storage, let's say Azure Blob, Azure Files, Amazon S3. I think we can just use Azure Blob for a moment. The thing I like about this one, if you go back to the previous section, is that we immediately also provide a graphical representation on how we're going to protect the data. So the Azure Blob also uses the Metallic Backup service. It's a shared component. Again, it does not require any footprint to be deployed. And you can either push the data into the Metallic Azure storage, that is, bring your own Azure storage, or you can push the data into the Metallic Azure storage. So we have your bring your own storage, which is the lower part, and the Metallic Azure storage, which is the Metallic Recovery Reserve or Virtual Air Gap Solution platform. So hit next. Okay, we hit create. It takes a few seconds, and then we can hit next. So let's say for the simplicity, let's use Metallic Recovery Reserve here. Everything is already filled in. Germany West Central is selected based on the region or country that we have associated with the specific tenant. We hit create. And optionally, you can also define a secondary copy of the data. Secondary copy will go to a different tier of storage as a Metallic Recovery Reserve cool tier. The second thing is that it also allows you to set a different retention plan on the hot or on the cool tier by using the Metallic platform. In this one, let's just take one copy. You can use a default plan, or you can just say, I want to create a custom plan. In the name, just give it something like a demo, webinar, test. So what we're going to do here is we're telling the platform that we want the data to be retained for 1 month with a backup frequency of daily. As of the moment that we hit create, the create will trigger the creation of the backup plan in the backend for you, and then we can move forward again. Okay, perfect. So hit next. Now we associate, and guess what? Just hit backup now, and that was the onboarding of an Azure storage account in Metallic. If you now go to the advanced view, you can either go to Office 365 advanced view button there. It gives us access again to the command center in the backend where we can do our day-to-day administration tasks. If you go here to let's say jobs, I'm just curious to see how your your Azure storage account backup is running. So it's currently on 15%. That is the job ID that ends on 33. That's good, it's running. What we can do now is let's quickly also onboard Azure Virtual Machines. So we have VM and Kubernetes. If you click on the new configuration, just wait here for a minute, just so that the people can see what the different workloads are that are being supported. So we have Azure VM, Hyper-V, VMware, OCI, Kubernetes, and Amazon EC2. The difference between the cloud-based workloads like Azure VM is that these one or Azure VM will be using a shared data plane component to protect the workloads, whereas, for example, for Hyper-V or VMware, we need a footprint in the customer environment, and that is the either a DMP backup gateway or backup appliance or just a metallic backup gateway. So there is some flexibility there. So if you hit the Azure VM, again, graphical representation on what we're going to do. Notice that there is an Azure app required. There's also that orange part is a link. From there, we immediately points you to the documentation that specifies the permissions that the Azure app requires. We already have pre-configured this in the environment, so we can just hit next. Here, hypervisor name, subscription ID, and so on. We hit create. Again, similar process as with the onboarding of the object storage. And then we hit create, and we configure the hypervisor client in the backend. And we hit next. So what do we want to backup? So first of all, we can give it a name like demo or my data or whatever, my important VMs. And here you can define how you want to approach it. Either you go to individual virtual machines, or you select the data based on resource groups or regions or storage accounts or tags. So tags or Azure tags in this case. Let's go for the regular VM, and then we can just select the DMP demo. What is good to know is that we have the ability to toggle the enable IntelliSnap operation. What is IntelliSnap? IntelliSnap is an integration that we have to interact or integrate with the Microsoft Azure snapshotting technology. So whereas in a regular backup, what we will be doing is we take an Azure snapshot, we read the Azure snapshot, we put it into Metallic, and we apply our retention times with deduplication compression enabled, of course. If you have to recover something, you have to recover it back from Azure storage account or the Metallic recovery reserve. With IntelliSnap, you have the ability to say, I would like to keep the 3 last backups as a snapshot on the Azure platform. So if you have to recover data, you have to recover a virtual machine, you can actually pull it back from the snapshots itself. What we will be doing from our side is we will be controlling the number of snapshots that we need to retain on Azure for you based on the configuration that you have implemented. I don't think for the demo that we need to enable IntelliSnap, so we can just hit save here, and then we can hit next. Storage account, let's also go for the Metallic recovery reserve. Azure blocked here, and then we can say Germany West Central. Here you can see that there are other regions enabled already for this specific tenant. So if you have data in the UK South, you can actually use the UK South as well as a target to store your backup data. Again, ability to have a secondary copy, move data from the hot tier to the cool tier of Metallic recovery reserve with potentially with different retention times configured. Hit next. Use an existing plan, or we can just create a new plan. So the existing plan is the one that we created for the Azure Block account. It's a server plan. We can correlate with it. If you say, let's go for 3 months retention time, you can also create a new plan. Just depends on what you want to do. That's it. You see similar approaches with the Azure Blob account. Hit backup now, and your Azure VM onboarding is finished as well. So back to the Metallic Hub, because that's where all the onboarding starts. Then we go to the Active Directory tile, which is the first one on the first row. You just hit New Configuration. Then you say Azure AD. Continue. In the backend, we provision the metallic storage for you. Hit continue. Again, everything happens with our metallic shared data plane. So you don't need to install any components. Just provide access. Similar approaches with the express configuration as seen on Dynamics and Office 365. Sign in with Microsoft. Give you a pop-up. Again, we log in with a global administrator. This is only required for the initial setup. Afterwards, we don't use this account anymore. Then we hit close. And we say create. And yeah, that was actually the Azure AD onboarding.
Thank you very much, Ruben, for this detailed guidance on how to implement SaaS workloads efficiently. As you can see, it's a matter of minutes to get the first backups running, all using intuitive and easy to use wizard-based configuration. So, this concludes our presentation and demonstration. We will now move on to the live questions and answers.